Thanks again for being so prompt and joining this webinar. The webinar is recorded, so just bear that in mind. I believe you were made aware of that during the registration process, but I thought I would let you know again. However, don't let that stop you from asking difficult, awkward questions. It's healthy that we have a conversation, particularly as we are, in theory, only a dozen. So as you know, this is all supported by the Humber Business Growth, and I absolutely endorse all of the other webinars that are in this series. No doubt you are aware of those. If you're not, there is the website there, growmysme.co.uk. But today we're going to talk about Internet of Things, and we're going to take it relatively slowly. I'm going to talk to you about a number of issues. So, what are the Internet of Things? What are the application areas? What might this mean for you as a business? How might you monetize this concept? And that should take no longer than, I would say, an hour at tops. And we've got some time, in theory, half an hour for any sort of conversation that might flow from that. So we've got plenty of time. And, by all means, feel free to stop and ask me questions as we go along. So just some housekeeping, and you've all been very good. I see a number of you have already muted your microphones. Housekeeping here, I mentioned that the total session would be no longer than 90 minutes. There is time for questions at the end. If you're familiar with Zoom, there is a chat function. I encourage you to use that to post me questions or say hi or whatever you want. I won't be looking at that continually because it's a bit of a distraction. But what I'll do is the slides are broken up into some section breaks. And during the section breaks, I'll look in there, see if there's any questions, and we'll have a sort of pause and reflect on anything that I've covered. Please do try and keep your microphones on mute. I can see a number of you have done that. It just means I can't hear all of the obscenities in the background and the dogs barking and, all of that business. If there's a problem, and I mean really a problem with my own connection, what I'll do is I'll try and reconnect to this session. So give me 10 minutes if you experience any technical problems, and I will try and reconnect. I'm pleased to see there's a number of people just joined, so welcome if you've just joined. I've really just explained some housekeeping rules which are on the screen here, and of course that we are in the Internet of Things session. So if you're in the wrong place, then you've got an opportunity to leave. But we'll try and keep it as entertaining as amusing as possible for you. I know it's hard work, particularly at this kind of siesta time and with such a good day. So I'll try and keep it high energy for you. Quickly about me, I guess I'm a technologist at heart. I've been working on technology projects, mainly in the government sphere, for at least 12 years. I provided my Twitter handle there just in case you want to get hold of me after today. I am based in North Lincolnshire, so if you are local to me, then be delighted to hear from you. And I guess my interest in Internet of Things is from probably two sides: the IT side, because I'm a bit geeky, but also from the electronic side, from the kind of solid state, physical, something that you can touch and feel, interacting with the internet. So that's me, and yes, I am happy to receive your communications after this webinar. That's perfectly okay. However, what I'd really like to do is hear from you, and I invite you to just say, hello, introduce yourself, and tell me what the last thing was that you purchased that you could connect to the internet, if you have such a thing. So without further ado, I'm not picking on anyone in particular, just looking at my list here. Pedro, good afternoon. Do you want to say a quick hello to us?
Yes, sure. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pedro Monteiro, and I'm speaking from Lisbon, Portugal. I'm very interested in internet related matters, and that's why I registered for this session today. So I hope to learn something from you and be prepared for the future challenges in the economic environment. Thank you.
No problem, Pedro. Nice to have you with us from so far away, and that's, isn't it, the beauty of these internet sessions, that we can get such a wide reach. So thank you. Christina, good afternoon.
Hello. I'm recently self-employed, and I will be doing a master's in data science as a reconversion course. So obviously, I have a keen interest in technology and the internet. So before I start uni, I wanted to make sure I'm more informed than I am, and hopefully the session will have a lot of things to take away, basically. And to answer that question, the last thing that I purchased was probably a cushion.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
An internet connected cushion, is that possible?
No, it's just like making a purchase via the internet. I would
Okay.
say.
I'm interested to know. Sorry, you know, maybe the question is a bit ambiguous. I'm interested to know, did you purchase anything recently that could be connected to the internet, like I don't know, an intelligent light bulb? Do you have anything like that?
No, I had a camera that was connected to the internet, and I could keep an eye on my pets while I was away. That was a long time ago.
Excellent. Well, great example. And I think that's probably an item that many people have purchased to secure their homes, or, like you say, make sure their relatives are safe. A great example. So welcome and thank you. Helene, would you like to say something?
Hi, I'm a little bit in late. Excuse me, I just connect me, and I've got some computer troubles, some computer, and my English. I'm in French, living in Italy, and my English is not so comprehensive, not so understandable. Excuse me for my English. What I want to say, I'm engineer. My formation is I was engineer. I stopped working. I've got the story, the same story as the precedent person. Yeah. Now I want to come back in the labor market. I study another thing, was a master. And concerning the Internet of Things or digital things, for the moment, I'm not very equipped. I've got no instruments for my own. No Alexa or at home. I have nothing very regarding robotics or digital things. But I'm not digital native, but I have some knowledge, some, and I did other, and I'm trying to upgrade and to adjourn. No, on dit pas adjourn in English. I try to upgrade my formation, my training.
Perfect. Look, thank you. I understood every word, so your English is much
you.
better
Thank
than
you very much. Thank you very much.
Give yourself credit for. Fabulous. Well, I hope you learned something today. Brian, I think you've just joined us. Did you want to say a quick hello, and maybe there's something that you've purchased recently that connects to the internet that you have?
Good question. Sorry, good afternoon to you all. Nothing I suppose a phone, really. Everything seems to connect to the internet these days.
It's a very good point. And phones, packed full of technology. Okay, well, look, if there's something in particular you want to get out of the session, do say. Otherwise, I will crack on with the introductions. Nice to have you here. And then I've got Federico. Would you like to say something? No, okay, well, that's fine. I mean, you don't have to say anything. Mina, would you like to say something?
Yeah, just to say that I work for East Riding Council and I'm a sort of business advisor, but I'm also looking at the smart sort of county. So hence why we're looking at the Internet of Things. The last thing I probably purchased was a Hive system. Not quite sure how it works, but it does connect to the internet. And then we change our broadband provider and then it stopped working.
Yes, this is for managing your central heating, isn't it, remotely?
It is, that's right, yeah.
I have a similar device called a Nest, which is from Google. And personally, I think that's fantastic. When you've left the house and you've forgotten to turn the heating off, should save you money. But as you said, quite difficult to operate and easily broken. So I'm sure we'll cover some smart cities applications for you as we go through. Thanks, nice to have you here. And then finally, I think I've got Sally. Would you like to say something, Sally?
I'll unmute, which is always a good start. Okay, so I'm a sole trader. I'm just starting up in business, so I'm not sure that I'm in the right place. So just you'll tell me, I'm sure. I'm interested in expanding my knowledge of social media because I want to advertise my business. So that's really the reason that I'm sort of coming on webinars at the moment. The last thing I purchased from the that's connected to the internet would be my phone, but I also have a Google Mini, which is connected up as well.
Great, thank you, Sally. Well, I hope there's something here that catches your attention. And yes, the Google Mini is like one of these voice assistants, isn't it? Where you can ask it questions like, tell me a joke. And I don't know any jokes, yes. But they're quite fun. And indeed, they can also operate things in your house that are also connected to the internet. So thank you very much for your examples. And I think that was useful just to try and understand who's on the session today. So I guess the leading question from me is, what is Internet of Things about? And the best definition I've got for you is regular things that are connected to the internet. Or it could be new things that are just internet enabled. So these things, whether they be toasters, in my example, they interact with other things. You can collaborate with them and they exchange data. So in essence, they are smart things. And just listening to your examples there about your heating system, which never used to touch the internet, there are many of these, like light bulbs, which now can be controlled and operated over the internet. So we're seeing a revolution in the way that things talk to each other, collaborate and exchange data. What are the examples around me? Well, you've provided some. The voice assistants is a great one that people have really taken a shine to, because isn't it so easy to interact with our voices to a device and ask it questions about the weather, and great for people who maybe have accessibility problems or who don't like keyboards and so on. But we also have things like video doorbells. This is something which we've seen an explosion of in the United Kingdom, whereby someone presses your doorbell, there's a video camera in there, and you can receive the video on your mobile phone from wherever you are, answer the door remotely, perfect for home working. But also, of course, all of that recorded video is archived, and you can review that, but also the police can review it. If there's a crime that's happened in your area, you can opt in to share your data with the police. So you can see the benefits of having something that's internet connected, which is so simple, like a doorbell. And increasingly, what we're going to see is that things talk to other things. So, for example, your car might be able to talk to the car next door to it, and the car next door to it will talk to the car behind it. And immediately you've got some information, real-time information there about, say, road conditions. Is the road blocked? Is it bumpy? Am I braking quickly? And so on. So the Internet of Things can be things that are connected to the internet, but they can also be things that are connected to other things. So I apologize for the kind of difficult explanation, but I'm trying to think a bit of it in the easiest terms possible. How about other examples? Well, believe it or not, there are many, many of these examples, and I've got at least 6 here on the screen for you. Top left there, you've got a fridge with a screen on it. And this is really a fridge which understands what's inside it and helps you understand, how much food you've got, maybe how many calories are in the food, whether the food's healthy, but also will help you when you're ordering more food. So it could connect to a shop and start the ordering process for you. Rather scary, certainly if your children like fillet steaks or something like that. Top middle is a sports example. This is a ball from Adidas, and it has sensors inside it so that when you kick it, you get some information about your performance. And then you can relate your performance to other people's performance across the world. How fast did you strike the ball? What kind of spin did it have? So there's some kind of fun aspect to Internet of Things, as well as the kind of serious aspect of collecting data. Top right there is a civic example. So Mina, it might be one for you. Street lamps or street furniture, which is connected to the internet, which allows you to control it. So it could be that you turn that street furniture or the lighting red when there's a police car that goes by, to allow other motorists to understand that there's an emergency. Or indeed, it might just be able to tell you that it's broken, so you can go and fix it. Very efficient use of resources. Bottom left is a very peculiar example, and one that is in my life at the moment. And that's a washing machine that can talk to the internet, or a dishwasher. You may ask yourself, why on earth do I want that? Well, in this example, you can remotely start and stop your wash. It will alert you when the wash is finished. I guess it's not that useful. It's more of a gimmick, but maybe there are some practical applications. The examples on the middle bottom right are more practical. We have a Nest smoke alarm and carbon monoxide sensor. So if there's a fire in your property, it will alert you. But what's great about this device is it also talks to any smart central heating device that you have, so that if there was a fire, for example, in your property, it would turn off your central heating and gas. So you can see how the combination of smart things talking to smart things and the internet is very beneficial. Finally, bottom right is the smart light bulb, and this is really a device which turns on and off light bulbs. But it means that if you're out and about, you can turn your light bulbs off. If you start to approach your house and it detects you approaching, your light bulbs come on. And you can set rules so that, for example, if you go on holiday, your light bulbs could switch on and off randomly, and prospective thieves may not come and burgle you. Now, with all of this control that we have now with Internet of Things, there's something else called IFTTT, and that stands for if this, then that. I think I've missed out something there, but roughly if this, then that. So my point is, you can create logic around all of these connected things. If I kick the football very hard, turn off my lights. If the washing machine finishes, order a pizza. I mean, it sounds crazy, those examples in particular, but it just goes to show that we can actually start to make our own rules and our own conditions for how these things work together. Just to remind you, there is an interlude after a couple of these slides, so we can have a discussion about all of this. Now, someone earlier on the introductions also said, my phone it connects to the internet, and absolutely, phones are kind of the bridge, I would call them, with internet connected devices. So you tend to find with smart devices that they need to be configured, and typically that configuration the user will do using their phone. But it might be that your phone is supplying data to your device. It could be your location, something to do with audio, or maybe something to do with your movement. And that is because phones are crammed full of technology and crammed full of sensors. So phones have a part to play in how smart devices connect to the internet and how they use data. We're also seeing a revolution in wearables, I call these things, sensors which are embedded into materials. And I think we'll see more and more of this. So the Internet of Things expands into the examples here. A sensor on a nappy to detect if your child is wet and the nappy needs changing, or maybe a sensor in a bra which will detect the heartbeat of the wearer and warn you if something is irregular. So increasingly, these things are becoming independent of the need for any kind of computing. All of the processing done very low power inside the device, which is in this case waterproof, small, and look out for this revolution. Now, there are some other applications for Internet of Things, and one of them is security. FedEx have this small device, you see it on the slide here, which you can put inside a package that you send by post, and it will tell you via the internet if your package has been dropped, or if it's got too hot, or if it's wet, or if it's been opened. And this is fabulous for tracking something that's very precious, like maybe a painting, or maybe even for animals in transport. So you can see how there's an application there. And if you think about aircraft, they are sending data to the internet continually, and they might be informing the maintenance team about the need for repair. They may be informing, or they are informing engineers about the performance of the aircraft, and so on and so on. So we've got devices, Internet of Things devices, which send data periodically, and we've got devices which send real-time data, and we'll see more and more of this, to the point at which internet traffic is becoming almost saturated by these sensors above the kind of work that you and I do, the searches and so on. It's quite a dizzying thought. In terms of smart cities, we've got a number of applications for these devices. One of them here in San Francisco is about helping people find parking spaces. So you can imagine in a car park, there might be sensors, and they detect whether cars are actually in a space. And then, of course, you have some insight on whether you should go for a certain space in a certain location. But things get smarter. You can have devices which then, you imagine a small robot which travels around the car park, and it inspects the cars. It looks at the wheels. Is there a problem with any of the wheels? Do they have tread? Are the brakes okay? It reads the computer information from the car's computer about the state of the repairs. It sends out a mechanic to fix your car whilst it's parked. Quite an extreme example, but you can see that having all of that data and all of that interaction means that we can again automate our products and services around it. And there are many examples of smart city applications. I don't know about you, but I've certainly got a smart meter in my house, which measures my consumption of water, of electricity and gas. And that helps our understanding of what we're spending, but it also helps our suppliers with their demand management. You know, how many power stations do they need to keep running to get our power to our houses? How do they estimate the energy requirements based on the weather and my habits? So we're seeing an increasing number of these smart measuring systems come into place, and those can save money, you know, from a supplier's perspective, but also from a consumer's perspective. Let me just admit Helene there, I think she just got dropped off. So thinking about the fridge example, you know, supply and demand here is all interlinked, and you know, this is a great opportunity, I suppose, for producers, in this case ice cream, to kind of manage their production in a way which is scalable to consumption. And I don't want to dwell on this particular diagram, but you know, it absolutely is possible today to embed all of those sensors in our packaging of foods, in the fridge, via the internet, and to our factories. And I guess, you know, maybe within 10 years' time, we'll see the advent of smart factories which work like this. And I suspect you'll be able to, you know, buy a fridge and have no choice about the fact that it's got these sensors inside, other than you could turn them off. Oops. There's also a massive application area in health. And the example here is the Ventolin inhaler for people with asthma has been digitized. Someone in America is providing these with a sensor in. And, you know, something quite so simple in this example helps people understand the triggers. So, for example, that sensor will know via your phone where you are, if you're near grass or pollen. And it will help, of course, the medics to kind of diagnose symptoms, to understand how much dose a person is taking, or whether their condition's getting better or worse, and so on and so on. So, you know, fantastic possible applications by something quite as simple as adapting an existing technology or an existing device with a smart sensor. So that's an opportunity for you. You know, everyday devices that you might be able to add sensors into and understand, of course, the data that's coming out of. So nearly a break. You know, I don't want to overwhelm you with long words. Just to say that these devices, these Internet of Things, they do need a way to connect to the internet. And it might be, in the case of a smart meter, that's a simple SIM card that you have in your phone. And whoever's receiving all the data needs to have a good understanding of how to process it. So, you know, what does the data mean? This is data science, effectively. And then the final part in this diagram is, you know, how do we take that data and turn it into some kind of visualization so that we can understand it and consume it easily? It would be no good if I had my smart meter in front of me with, you know, lots of digits and facts. What I want to see is kind of like graphs and indicators. And you can see, in fact, on the smart meters in the UK, we've got these lovely dials, are very simple to understand. So the benefits, I'm not going to read these out to you, but the benefits are all here on this slide. And we think, or the industry thinks, that the main benefit is going to be in smart factories and smart cities, but also human benefits in terms of health. Maybe there's an implication there for, you know, the NHS, maybe improving our well-being. And then you see that the benefits sort of fizzle off as we get to things like vehicles. But nevertheless, lots of feedback there from someone. Hard to deny these benefits. Maybe, you know, improving safety, reducing risk is something we should look at too. So there's the interlude. Does anyone want to chip in at this point and, you know, discuss any of those aspects before I move on? Has anyone got any questions? You can always put them in the chat box. I'm happy to look in there as well. And oh, okay, yep, someone's got a question, Pedro, there about Internet of Things regarding GDPR risks. So GDPR, if you don't know, is the European legislation about dealing with personal information. So I guess the first aspect there is we would want to depersonalize any information. And GDPR is a funny bit of legislation. You know, it's horrible, but effectively people can opt in to providing their personal information. So that's one opportunity. If you're going to be dealing with that, you need to ask people to opt in. The other aspect of GDPR is there are lots of legal bases for processing. So if it's a government initiative and the legal basis for processing is for municipal requirements, you don't need consent. So I guess the main implication I'm suggesting to you here is about consents, and that will depend on your usage pattern. But I think it's good practice to, you know, to make people aware that they are providing data. There is a kind of, you know, surveillance concern, I suppose, about the general public. And I would hope that most of these things anonymize the data that's being used wherever possible. Good question, Pedro. Very good question. Well, I can't hear any more questions for anyone else, so I will carry on. And as I said, there are opportunities to get involved in the debate in these interludes, but also in the chat box. So well done for keeping with me. Okay, so thinking about what you need for an Internet of Things system, there are 4 things. You need those sensors to collect the data. You need some kind of transmission. You need some kind of ability to process that data, and that might be an algorithm. And then you need to find some way of feeding back the information, the useful part of that information, to the end user. So just those 4 components, but I think you'll appreciate quite difficult, each of those. So the first thing there was a sensor. And the thing about sensors, you can see on this graph here, which is actually the number of sensors in an iPhone. There are now, you know, at least 10 sensors in every smartphone. So our ability to understand where you are, if you're moving, if you're hot, if you're cold, has greatly increased. And that means that we've got more scope for kind of an innovative application for these devices. On the left-hand side there, I've got a breakdown of where the sensors tend to be focused. So, you know, 12% of sensors tend to be about moisture. We've got, you know, 10% in the kind of magnetic detection, but relatively few sensors for detecting leaks. However, you know, every day people are inventing new sensors, and that means that we're going to have more and more ways to understand what the device is doing, what the user is doing, and that's where I guess the value comes in terms of smart things. Here are some common sensors. I've put the labels on for you, and you can see that some are small, some are big. You know, they come in different shapes and sizes, but typically they are, you know, smaller than your finger. And you can see that they are quite unintrusive. So if you have to put an alcohol sensor into your car dashboard, you know, that only takes up a few millimeters of the dashboard. But the real effort at the moment is to try and reduce all of these things to a much smaller size and embed them into, say, a single chip. And you can see the example I've got here on the screen. We need to try and make them cost effective, smaller, so that they use less power, more accurate, more reliable, and so on. And this is the kind of technological advancement that we're working in today. So there might be a market opportunity if you are in an engineering company to try and develop new sensors, but also to try and make existing sensors more accurate, durable, smaller, and so on. Now, if you're interested in experimenting with making a device smart, then I'm going to recommend to you something called Arduino. And these are small kits that you can buy online. And inside these kits, you've got everything you need to sense the world around you, but also connect to the internet. And if you know some programming, to be able to add some programming to these devices. They also have a service for how the data is transmitted to a effectively a web server. So it's an all-in-one package for people to experiment with creating their own Internet of Things device. Now, you know, I won't try and pull the wool over your eyes. This is quite a complicated thing to do, and you probably would need some programming experience, or at least to go and learn from the website here how to make these things actually work. But they are a low-cost way, you know, $40 is all I'm talking about, low-cost way of experimenting with an Internet of Things device. So please do go and have a look at Arduino IoT Cloud. Okay, the next part of the process line here is, you know, data is sent from your device to the internet. And you're probably aware that there are many, many ways that things can connect to the internet wirelessly and wired. I've put some examples here. Bluetooth, you may have some Bluetooth headphones that you use in your house. We know about 3G, 4G, 5G, which our mobile phones use. Our remote controls for our television use infrared, and so on and so on. Now, the thing to realize about all of these different connection techniques is they have different abilities. So, you know, your infrared remote control, light can only travel in a straight line, not round corners. Your Bluetooth headphones, they don't work when you're more than, you know, 3 meters away from your transmitter. Your Wi-Fi, pretty great actually, but again has a limited range and bandwidth and so on. So we have to try and choose the connection protocol, the connection technology that's appropriate to our needs. And you know, typically that will be thinking about, as I said, the amount of data you need to transmit, how much energy you can afford to use in that transmission, and distance and so on. So think about how these things will connect is important. For your information, a lot of the home Internet of Things kits like Nest, like the Hive system someone spoke about, use something called Zigbee and Z-Wave. And they're very similar to your Wi-Fi, so have very similar characteristics. But yeah, it's always worth asking yourself, you know, how are these things connecting? Okay, another short interlude. I promised not to go too fast for you. I see I've got a question on the chat there. Has anyone got any other questions before I look at that one that they want to verbally ask me?
Sorry, Fraser. So you're saying like the Hive does not need the internet then because it uses that Zigbee?
It could be, yes. Well, I mean, the Hive probably does need to connect to the internet for talking to you or your phone or other devices, but it probably is talking. Well, okay, I'm guessing, but it could be that you have a base unit and a unit which is connected to your boiler.
Yeah.
In which case that will be talking to each other using Zigbee or Z-Wave.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But the base unit that connects to your computer is then connected to the internet. So it can be complicated. But in having these peripheral standards like Zigbee and Z-Wave, they don't interfere or get, you know, they don't appear on your Wi-Fi network and get people confused.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're very low power as well, and that's so important with these devices that they only want to, you don't want to use battery too much.
Yeah.
Good question. very good question. Let me address this one on the text here. For a normal citizen not familiar with technology, how the companies can approach the potential customers with more sophisticated products and services. I mean, I guess there are two things happening here. The first thing is we are increasingly living with people who are used to these technologies. So, you know, the young people of today are digital native. They're natives, and you know, they do understand and they're used to all of this. So I think we'll get to a stage where actually this is totally accepted. The other thing here is educating our citizens or our consumers about the benefits. So if it is the fact I can find a parking space easily and not waste my time, or use my computer or my electronic equipment and consume less energy because it's I use it in the night and not the day. That's another way. And I think the third way is really just giving people choice. So, you know, whilst we can put these sensors into things, have the ability for them to be smart or not. So ultimately you can utilize the benefits, but if you really are not savvy and you're not capable of using the technology, you don't have to. The devices can still be used without the smart element. I think that's probably my advice to you there. Okay, let me carry on. I don't want time to escape us, and I've got plenty of more of the content, so let me carry on. The third part in this process diagram is the processing of the data. And the good news here is that there are some software tools that will do that processing for us. So the example here I've got is something called Microsoft Azure Machine Learning Studio, which you can kind of buy into from Microsoft. And you can see here that it's a nice visual programming language. So the data can come in to your application, and then you can apply a certain filter or some logic, and then you get the data out. So there are sort of ready to go systems which will help you in understanding that data. But you will need data centers, you will need servers, computers to kind of soak up all of that data. And you can imagine that the storage of all of that data soon becomes quite big, and you end up with a lot of information. Now, there is something called edge computing, and I'm going to give you an example of that in a minute. But basically what this means is, instead of sending all of the data about a device straight to the internet, straight for someone to understand it, some of that understanding will happen actually on the device itself. And this means that we have less transmission, but there's also less delay in processing. And it means that the device, the smart device, can make its own decisions. So this is called edge computing, and increasingly we're seeing devices which are able to process the data inside the actual device itself, rather than sending it off for processing. The classic example I've got for you is Amazon Alexa. This is very similar to the Google Assistant that someone mentioned they had. When you say Alexa, the recognition of that speech happens actually on the device. So there is some speech recognition built in. Everything that happens after you say Alexa, so this might be Alexa, turn on my lights. The turn on my lights part will get sent for processing. Oh, my Alexa's just promised to turn on my lights. I shouldn't mention it. That bit is sent for processing and then sent back as a number of digital signals, which get turned into a sound on the device. So you can see part of the process is on the device, part of the process is Amazon. And finally, you know, the data must be made useful. Well, for me, this is all about visualizations, and you need two things. You need people who will understand what the data means, and you know, they can apply their own logic and thinking. But also, I think you need people who are great at presenting graphics. And as humans, we learn visually. The example here on the left is from a thermostat. So I get these emails every week, every month, in fact, that tell me how many hours of sunshine we've had, and how many what they call leaves, how many trees I've saved, that kind of thing. So trying to convert that data into something real is very important. Maybe in the case of a civic example, it's how many grams of CO2 that you've saved, how much of the environment you've saved, how many minutes you've taken off the doomsday clock, that kind of thing. There are many examples of visualizations. I've got a few here for you. The one on the right, weirdly, is from a toothbrush. And believe it or not, you can buy a toothbrush with a sensor in, which will tell you, how good your flossing is, how good your rinsing is, whether your teeth will be shiny or not, or whether the dentist will be happy. On the left-hand side is slightly different. It's basically information which is overlaid or augmented into a map. So you can imagine that it's not just the data we have, it's how we present it. And in this case, maybe it's an official looking over a city. They can see immediately some statistics about energy use or pollution or crime in the various parts of the city. So it can be quite fun in terms of how people can consume the insights from these devices. What are the challenges then? Well, look, anything that you add to an existing device has a cost to it, clearly. There's always a concern about security. Pedro mentioned, I think, or someone mentioned in the chat about GDPR and whether there's personal information exchanging hands. Users absolutely need support, and they need to be savvy enough to be able to deal with the new complexities of the technology. We've got integration problems with standards, and all of these things add up to extra effort. But there's also another problem which I haven't explained, and that is about speed. So I'll come to that example later because it's an important one. So the dangers then of a compromised smart device are many. It could be that it could cause a fire. I mean, look at the Iranian centrifuges and the Iranian attempts to create nuclear material. The Americans actually changed some of the devices and caused them to go haywire. It could happen. We've got the surveillance concern, and we had a story about a year ago of a Samsung TV with a camera in the TV, which could have been spying on people as they watch the TV. Could it be that your device that monitors your heart or your health fails, and your doctor doesn't get a warning about your heart attack? Could it be that the door sensor in your hotel room is hacked and someone can steal your goods? There are many examples here, and I don't need you to get too concerned, but clearly we need to consider security as part of any design of these things. So if you are in the zone for creating a device with smart features, then there are three things you do need to consider. Securing the device itself. So in other words, if it's got some kind of configuration or passwords, making sure people can't get in, or they can't reverse engineer what you've done. Securing the network, so the transmission part, if you're sending personal information or data, encrypt it perhaps. And then the last one, which is very important, make sure that your smart devices can be updated remotely, so that if the world does change, if there is a bug, if your thermostat suddenly stops working, somebody can come in remotely and fix that. So there are things we can do, and there will be, I think, some requirement from government here to intervene and educate people about the security needs of these devices. The classic example there on the screen is disable devices you don't use. Something so simple that could keep you safe. Okay, there's another interlude. I know I've gone through that at some pace, but anyone got any questions here at this point? You're making this too easy for me. Maybe you're all looking out the window wishing you were in this glorious sun we're having today. Well, look, I'll remind you that you can absolutely put questions in the chat, and happy to you know, keep these interludes going for any questions. Good. All right, let me crack on. So here's another example. I just wanted to talk to you briefly about this problem of latency. And this concerns the light bulb, the humble light bulb. You know, we've all got them in our houses and our offices. Philips have the patent to the humble light bulb, but they decided to invest in research and develop now a smart bulb. And then basically this bulb can be controlled remotely, you know, from your phone, from other sensors. It could be that you walk into a room, there's a sensor which detects your presence and the light bulb comes on, for example. Or it could be that you've got an Alexa or a Google Mini and you talk to it and you say, I won't say Alexa because my Alexa can hear me, but it might say, Brian, turn on the lights, and your light turns on. Now, the first thing you'll notice is the price difference. You know, a traditional bulb is £3. A smart bulb is getting on for 25. So immediately you can see one of the issues here, consumers accepting that they've got to pay for some of this technology, and that's quite a harsh, steep increase in you know, a normal bulb. But the problem Philips had was what they call time to light. So when someone said, Brian, turn on my lights, or whether someone pressed a button on their phone to turn on their lights, it might take, you know, 10 seconds for the signal from someone's phone to go to the computer, to get processed, to go back to someone's house to turn the light on. And clearly that's just not acceptable. So what Philips have had to do is invest in lots and lots of computer infrastructure on a local basis. So it could be, you know, a server which is close to my my country or even my region, and you can imagine how much infrastructure is needed across the globe. So something quite so simple as turning on the light actually takes a lot of infrastructure behind the scenes. And this kind of local infrastructure is known as fog, or fog computing. So if you're doing something at great scale, then just a word of warning, you do need to invest quite a lot in the back office. Now, in terms of value, you know, there are lots of things for you to think about as business people, as businesses. You know, how do I monetize that data, the real-time data? How do I monetize the benefits in terms of, you know, better risk avoidance? How do I monetize perhaps the remote maintenance of something? So someone gave me an example about a security camera. Could it be that a service you can now offer is, you know, we'll monitor your house for you. We'll look after your pets whilst you're away. These are different types of business proposition which you can start to think about. And, you know, the beauty of all of this is if you have a lot of data, you can start to sell that to others. You can start to mine the insights. And maybe there are some scientific discoveries in all of that big data too. So lots of ways that you can extract value from a business perspective in all of this. There's also some quirky examples. So there's something called the accessories marketplace. And if you have a smart doorbell, you can see that there are people selling simple wedges to go in and change the angle of that doorbell on your fascia of your house. There are people selling plastic modules to go over switches to turn them into smart switches. And there are people selling speakers that go on top of your Alexa device. So I guess there's a market opportunity here for anyone who's not necessarily making a smart device, but making things to go on or make smart devices more usable. So just bear that in mind if you're thinking about business opportunity. I'm not going to dwell on this side other than to say that smart things change the dynamic of the way that we work and operate. So I mentioned the idea that suppliers can understand demand. You've got kind of a change in push to pull there. And we're going to start to work, I think, in a world which is increasingly smart and increasingly means that we have to rely on the data to anticipate need. So what are the low risk, high reward things you could do as an organization utilizing Internet of Things? Well, I think the obvious one here is about optimizing internal processes. I've got 3 examples. Optimize your assets. Could it be that you use sensors under people's desks to understand whether they're at the computer and, you know, try and organize your office in a way which best matches your employees' behaviors? Could it be that you are going to improve your sales by not spying, but using sensors to understand your customers' behavior? And that could be as simple as a chip in a piece of fabric that's on your retail storefront or a can of beans, and you understand when that item has been picked up, taken around your store, put into someone's basket. So optimizing internal processes, low risk, high reward. What about low risk, medium reward? Well, I think this is really about adding value to what you're already doing. So again, looking at your existing products and services, thinking about how you might start to layer on these smart services, smart products, and starting maybe with something that's already successful, turning your toaster into a smart toaster, turning the ability to monitor something into the ability to remotely monitor something. That is a medium reward, low risk activity. But where's the fun? Well, that's the high risk, high reward. You know, this is really about building a new business around maybe even an existing or new Internet of Things product. So where people already have their Alexa devices, could you provide a plugin for that device which will allow people to ask, I don't know, when their bins are being collected? That's the civic example. You've got to be a bit braver here, and you've probably got to find an investor to do something like this. But there we are, high risk, high reward. I come to another break. You know, we're doing well. We're nearly at the end of this. You've borne with me for a good hour, so I understand your pain. Has anyone any observations or questions at this point? I'm looking in the chat as well. Can't see anything here. No one seems to be shuffling their microphone. I do hope you're still there. But that's fine. I'll move on, and then we've got some time at the end anyway to talk. So what's the future? Well, I said to you, look, the thing is there'll be more and more things connected to the internet, and this will create more and more traffic. In terms of internet traffic, I mean, not car traffic, but also we'll start to see the internet of everything. So, whether it's people, clothing, light bulbs, you name it, the expectation is that it will have some kind of connectivity. And that's a really, bamboozling idea. We're also going to see better and better sensors. I came across this example just yesterday, a pill, which is a sensor, and you swallow that. It's called the pill cam. It takes photographs of your insides, it relays information to doctors. You can probably guess where the pill is going to come out. I'm not sure it's reusable, but a fantastic opportunity made real through miniaturization. We'll also start to see some revolutionary sensing abilities. And I've spoken to a previous cohort about quantum technology, we are able today to detect gravitational waves, and that means things like seeing around corners, seeing through walls, possibly reading minds, pinpointing people's accuracy without the need for GPS satellites. You know, these things are revolutionary, and can you imagine the applications for a device which can do all of those things and relay that to the internet? So we're going to see a real quantum leap, literally, in our ability to see and hear the world around us. And I suspect we'll get to the point where we're looking at more automation. So if we do have sensors, cameras that can detect things and understand them, and I'm thinking about, in this example, you know, is this customer a robber? Is he holding or she holding a gun? You know, if it's yes and yes, let's get the police involved. Could it even be that a machine can read our laws and interpret those laws and understand whether actually there's no offense committed, you know, don't call the police, or this is an offense and, you know, do something about it? So as well as the sensors and the interpretation of the data, we are going to start to see systems which react instantly to these kinds of things. Now, I guess this is also a danger area. If we think about the wonderful Boeing 737 MAX, which was in the news for crashing, it had a system there to override the pilots to correct the angle of the plane depending on the conditions, and it you know, it did a bad job. It did not anticipate well, and it got things wrong, and people died. So again, this automated future of ours, in taking out the human element, also causes us some issues. For the here and now, I think the Internet of Things is going to change these four aspects of our lives. It's going to help us work from home, and we all need that. We're all doing that because of the pandemic. You know, my boss may be able to, well, can drop in on me and understand whether I'm working. And maybe even how productive I am, because there are signals coming from my home. As a worker, as a home worker, I can answer my doorbell remotely. That means I don't have to leave my desk, and so on and so on. From a retail perspective, we're going to see changes in the way that supply and demand works, but also how we can track our stock, how we can manage people's social distancing, you know, have lights and so on. How our supermarkets work. You've probably seen the Amazon supermarket, where people don't actually have to pay or have a cashier. They simply, you know, pick up the things they want and depart. From a health perspective, I think we'll see a focus on staying independent. Devices like even algorithms on our phone to help us detect when we've fallen over, to help us manage our relatives. And then in smart cities, you know, we're going to see an emergence of sensors which help us utilize our resources more carefully, detect emergencies, be kind of more intelligent about the choices that policymakers need to make. All of these areas are huge, and you know, what I guess I'm trying to do is encourage you to think about the business opportunities that present themselves wherever you are, whatever you're doing in those domains. So future applications, look, all of this, we're seeing revolutions in agriculture, agri-tech, maybe robots that will build our skyscrapers with us, or help us in our work, because of course we're seeing, again, labor shortages. We're going to see definitely more edge computing, more augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and so on and so on. You know, your imagination is probably the limit. In the future, then, this will be more accessible. I expect we'll see lower levels of human intervention in everyday tasks, which is probably a good thing, but there are dangers. We are going to need more data scientists, and you know, that's a skill I encourage you to look at if you are in education, or if you're a business and you're thinking about what roles do we need to implement these new changes? We're going to see better and better sensors, and I think the more people who can get involved in developing smaller, more accurate, more powerful sensors, the better. And if you're in ICT, if you're in IT, we definitely need you, because we're going to need this local infrastructure. And I suppose the message to local government is, let's put the connectivity in place, because if we have the connectivity, we open up the world of benefits. That, my friends, is your lot. I've spoken a lot, in fact, a good hour. I really hope that it's given you an insight into the world of Internet of Things. We do have some time for contemplation, and there are some slides afterwards that my colleague will go through to talk about the program. As I said, I really hope that I've tried to keep it snappy and concise for you, and that you've learned something today. But I'm happy to take questions. So first off, I'll invite anyone who wants to talk with me. It's very old-fashioned, but anyone want to say anything verbally? Mina, perhaps?
Yes, just to say thanks, Fraser. I'll probably log off now because I've got another meeting soon. But thank you for that insight.
No problem. You're welcome. Thanks for joining the call.
Bye.
In that case, I'll just go and try and answer the question directly about creating more jobs or redundancies. I suppose the expectation is, on balance, more people redundant than creation of jobs, regrettably. But look, I guess the other way to look at the question is, what type of jobs are there that we are getting rid of? And the type of jobs are probably the menial, laborsome, tiresome, low-paid jobs. So there is a skilling divide and a need for us to reshape, I suppose, the labour market. Well, look, with that, I think I do need a few more minutes for our host here, my colleague, to just talk about the programme. So I'm going to hand straight over to Sadia to say something about what you can do next.
Thank you very much, Fraser. Really appreciate your time to share that knowledge with us, and we hope all those that have attended have found it very useful. I know I've learned quite a few things there myself. I just wanted to let everybody know that there are more ICT for Growth events happening at the moment, and as you can see on that slide there, the next one is on 22nd of September and it's about tackling digital waste. So you can register for that in a similar fashion to how you did for this one on Eventbrite. There are also a series of masterclasses running at the moment, so titles of a couple are on that slide there. Just below that, a registration link will come up. There we go, the Grow My SME one. So if you go onto there, you'll see a full list of all the planned in events and be able to register for them via that link as well. I will circulate a copy of these slides. The other thing to mention is a digital catalyst program that's running in the Humber region at the moment, but I realise that those that are still with us at the moment on this webinar, it perhaps won't apply to, as it's for businesses based within the Humber region, and I know we've got quite a few international people on this call at the moment as well, so I won't run through that because I think it's irrelevant for the purpose of this this webinar just now, but I think again it's on the slides there that I will circulate it anyway. It's got some details of what it is that we're offering, but unfortunately we can't offer it out to those who are outside of the Humber region. So with that, one final thing actually, for those who are still with us, I'm going to launch a poll. It's got 8 very quick questions in there. It's got some standard questions we like to ask at the end of all of our online events to understand what you thought about the webinar and help us to sort of improve that in the future and understand also what's gone particularly well. If you could take a minute just to answer those, that would be much appreciated.
And I'll just say thanks to everyone on the line. I appreciate that these are bite-sized sessions, but the idea is to inspire you, and hopefully you'll go away and do some more research of your own. But yeah, thanks for your time.
So we'll leave that poll on the screen for another minute or so if anybody does want to complete the answers. I can see a few coming through now, thank you. And Fraser and I are here for a couple of minutes as well if there are any other questions before we close this link. Okay, thank you. I'm going to end that poll there. Thank you for taking the time to answer those questions. And I can't see that anything else has come in the chat box for us, Fraser. So thank you again. And I guess we can close the webinar there on that note.
Great. Well, thanks. And as I said, I got my contact details in the slides. Happy to take, you know, Twitter tweets if someone does think of something in the night. You know, always here to help.